the educational psychology, unit 2 and 3. So yesterday we completed the entire the syllabus relating to the course 5 elective B, elective A, that is educational psychology. In this elective A, we have the 14 units. Then out of 14 units, we are divided into the 5 blocks. So already, yesterday we discussed the entire total 15 units brief idea. Then already learned about the one unit. Today we are going to discuss unit 2. Unit 2. The scope of education and problems of schooling in contemporary India. Where we can use and how we can use. What are the areas to apply this kind of education in various fields? How it can be useful to the teachers and learners as well as parents. Here, today we are going to discuss about the scope of education. In that one, how it can be interdisciplinary nature of education, and we need to focus the problems of schooling in contemporary India. Then solutions to the problems in school and schooling and education. Already, everybody know. Yesterday, we learned about the education, meaning, goals, objectives, the nature of aims. There are 3 kind of aims. There are specific aims, general aims, and social aims. Here, the education is the preparing for completing living purpose, according to Herbert Spencer. He stated that education is preparing for complete living. So we have understand from the first time about the unit 1, the meaning of education and the aims of education in relation to the individual, society, and education itself. What is the nature of education generally? The nature of education comes under the wider sense, because education is a process that goes on throughout the life. Of course, this throughout the life, and it's promoted by almost every experience in life. Similarly, by education, I mean uh, the characteristics of the individual. It is nothing but all-round development and all-round drawing out of the best in the child. So here some of the main concepts relating to nature of education. So lifelong process is very important. Education is a lifelong process. It cannot be stopped a specific time. It cannot be stopped a specific area. It cannot be stopped. So education is the sequence of learning through the medium experience, which is acquired through formal, non-formal, and informal institutions and continue up to the end or death of an individual. It means the lifelong process cannot be limited to a specific area. We need to focus on a broader sense. Then dynamic process. Education is a dynamic process. How it can be dynamic process? Generally, education is related to human life, which will never be static, but always dynamic. If it is static, it cannot be covered the entire disciplinary ways. It can be always a dynamic, that's why. So lifelong process, the dynamic process, then individual development generally. So how it can be individual development? So education is related to the process of individual development through various dimensions. Especially according to the researchers or according to the educationists, they divide it into 7 dimensions. What are the seven dimensions? The physical dimension, mental dimension, aesthetic, moral, spiritual, social, and economic development. So in individual development, these 7 dimensions are very crucial for the lifelong learning process also. Physical, mental, aesthetic, moral, then spiritual, social, and economic developments. Then coming to develops child's innate power. Education develops child's innate power means education is not a thing to be inserted into the mind of the children from outside, but it helps to develop his innate capabilities through outside experience of the environment. Because without innate capacities, it cannot be performed according to the situation. If any child doesn't have any innate capacities, it means the child comes under below average or sometimes special needs or inclusive education may be needed. Then education modifies behavior. This is common to all. It's not for a child. It's also useful to the teachers as well as parents, as an educator, any kind of educator. So modifies behavior. So education helps the individuals to bring about a desirable change in the behavior whatever we want, however we want. Why we need to change our behavior? The desire need to be changed according to the behavior modification. If you need not educate a mean by telling what he knows, but making him what he is not. Based on this, so many techniques are available in the psychology that can be applied in the education. So we need to change, modifies the behavior, the education. Then education, purpose of social adjustment. The main purpose of the education is also social adjustment. Because this education is important tool which helps the individual making adjustment with the social environment. That is, we know, according to their parents or their relatives or their friends or their teachers and other members of the society, we need to socially adjustable. Otherwise, you can't survive without educational things. Then education for bipolar process. What is bipolar process? So John Adams calls it is a bipolar process. In this process, there is a constant interpretations between the teacher and the thought, the impact of personalities, like two poles interacting with each other, teacher and taught. So education means educated and educand, teacher and taught. These are a bipolar process. Sometimes it can be tripolar process. Bipolar and tripolar. In tripolar process involving the interaction of the personality of the educator and that of the educand in a social setting, which modifies the behavior of the educand. Educand means those who want to learn, those who want to know about the things. So education belongs to tripolar, means educator, educand, and environment. That is social. So based on these three, it can be tripolar thing. Then sometimes education, order of education, how it will be processed. If we take in the education term in the middle point of the various situations, the teacher and social environment and the pupil, it is nothing but student. These three can interact between each other, teacher, social environment, and pupil. Pupil means learner or student or individual. So direct and indirect process also involved in this education process. So education is said to be direct process when the teacher and the taught are in direct contact. It is an indirect process when pupils receive education from a distance. That is the direct or indirect. It is nothing but non-formal and informal, means the indirect process. Nowadays, we have been observing the online mode, the distance mode, and open mode. These are all comes under non-formal and informal. It is nothing but non-conventional. So in addition to the above, enrichment of experience, goal attainment, and theoretical and practical in nature, demand of modern age. So we need to understand if the nature of education is considered to be an part of science. So according to CP's now, 1959, identified two cultures in the academic world. What are these? The literacy intellectuals, as he called them, and of the natural scientists. By natural education is both a science side and art. Generally, as per this definition, so education must be taken as a science. It is a systematic body of knowledge accumulated through the ages by observation and experiment. It has theories and laws for arrangement and organization of educational activities. So, the nature of education itself. Then coming to what is scope of education? The scope of education reflects the breadth, range, extent, comprehensiveness, and variety of learning experiences to be provided in the educational process. Already we know, we discussed earlier, the education is a lifelong process. In fact, every day, every minute, step by step, we learn from every source of formal and informal organizations. Therefore, the scope of education is very vast. It is as wider as the world and ancient as the history of the mankind. So one can imagine that the entire life of the individual comes under the study of education. Without education, the individuals are not supposed to develop a systematic way, cannot be enhanced, balanced way of their lives. In any way, it may be involved either aesthetic or cultural, social, spiritual, mental, physical, and vocational development of the individual. We can include the following some of the subject matter to discuss the scope of education. For example, so education philosophy. The meaning, nature, purpose, and content of the education of a country is largely determined by the philosophy of the country. Because without philosophy of the country, it means nature, power, purpose, and content of the education, So education philosophy is the combination of philosophy and education. Under this, the various philosophical thoughts and their influence on education and life, the study, their lives are studied because the philosophy determines or determines all aspects of education, meaning and nature of education. It aims, especially for the curriculum, method of learning, the nature of textbook, the nature of discipline, and role of a teacher and social environment can be discussed if we know about the educational philosophy. If a individual want to become a good teacher, they should know about the educational philosophy. Then only the teacher can teach a perfect manner. Then educational sociology. The sociology of education may be defined as study of relation between education and society. Education and society. So without society, there is no person cannot be survived alonely. So education is an activity which is carried out a society in a society. Therefore, the aim of curriculum, methods of learning or methods of teaching, nature of discipline, etc. are depend on the nature of society in which, and sometimes it can be depends on their functions, according to the culture's functions, according to the society functions. So we study the society and its impact on the education. And that can be impact of education on cultural and society. The sociological basis is merged with education in order to achieve the objectives of the socialization of an individual through our education systems. Then another scope is need to be developed, need to be known. We should focus on the educational psychology. The psychology has been considered as one of the most influencing factors. Psychology has been considered as one of the most influencing factors which affect the process of education in different ways. Why? Because based on the psychological perspectives, pupil or teacher or society cannot be understand others' behaviors. The child factor, so many factors are influenced. The physiological factors, psychological, sociological, biological, and moral. How that factors can be influenced based on their behavior. So the child's faces a number of problems related to education and development. That kind of solution needs to be sought out with the help of psychology. So educational psychology studies, it studies various stages of physical, social, mental, and emotional development of a child. In education system, schooling system, and societal system need to be carried this educational psychology studies various stages: the physical, social, mental, and emotional development of a child. Of course, learning theories of psychology are applied in the teaching learning environment for making the learning better possibilities. It also deals with the problem-related personality, intelligence, memory, adjustment, and understanding of a child's behavior. So based on this educational cycle, the teachers at present should be equipped with various psychological skills which are needed for the successful guidance of learning, adjustment, and growth of the child. So subsequent units will provide more information on the knowledge and skills required to understand the scope of this branch. So especially educational psychology. That's why we have a separate elective for this fifth semester, that is educational psychology. So we need to be focused more on this field. Then coming to educational technology. So this branch of study helps the teacher to achieve the most with the least possible time. Because the energy and resources may be applying various teaching techniques. The mind of the child is a growing organism. The teacher follows different techniques of teaching based on the nature of the subject matter or psychology of the learning process. The way of processing the lesson itself esteemed to develop the interest and attention of the children or students or learners. Then another scope of the education is educational administration purpose we need to focus. How? Administrative functions are concerned primarily with the materials, facilities, and the operations of the schools. Because this educational administration, the supervisory functions are related with improving the learning situations. And that can be success of the educational process depends on the efficiency of the administration, the study of principles of educational administration, the supervision and control of the schools, like appointment of teacher, non-teaching staff, qualifications and duties of the teachers, and evaluation of the school performance will be deals under this educational administration. Then based on the observations, reforms would be made to the ensure effective administration. The coming to